Welcome back to the Proving Ground. I'm Eric McBride, and I'm with Sarah Rose today, and we're going to be talking about your journey over the last year in 2023 into the firearms training. And so just to let everybody know, when we met, we came up with the idea and the plan to have you take every class at MTAC and start working your way into an instructorship with us and become really the first master instructor at MTAC.
Yep.
So what I want to do today is kind of go over the year of training and kind of give everybody an insight of what it's like to just dive feet first into this thing. I mean, wholeheartedly, you went into it. So let's just start with, prior to MTAC, what was kind of your ideas of what firearms training were?
Yeah, so, my just experience and my background really came a lot from my dad. So my dad had a lot of experience just as like a little bit of an NRA basic instructor. We really just went to the range just to get comfortable and confident with firearms. So that's what I was used to, which is, range day with Dad. We're going to go out, shoot some steel, maybe have some fun. But there was no direction to it. It's just, get comfortable with it, have a good day at the range. And then that really turned into, now I've turned old enough to have a concealed carry weapon. So, now we're talking a little more about different trainings with understanding how we might use that or how we might avoid situations, just day-to-day life if we're going to be responsible in carrying a firearm. So that's really what it just stayed at. That was the level that we were going to keep the training as, was just to have fun, be confident with it, and be able to be responsible in using that. But that was good enough, and that's where we left it.
And I think for most people, especially firearms, Second Amendment type people, that's it. That's it. Is every once in a while, let's go hit the range, punch some holes in papers, and see how tight we can get that group.
Yeah, makes you feel good. You had a great day, good memory, and then move on with your life. Don't think about it again for a while.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think that's a great thing. I really think it's important for everybody to get out and do that. It's really the basis of our Second Amendment and have that ability to do that.
Right.
So first thing you do is you dive right into Defensive Pistol 1. And for the audience, that's just a basic pistol course. It gives you the fundamentals. And so have you ever taken any other course, like maybe an NRA or USCCA course? And how did that compare? How did the two compare?
Yeah, so I've done an NRA basic course before with my dad. We've went to indoor range kind of deal, shot some paper, got a little classroom instruction, and then we were able to, just move on, leave it there. So defensive pistol, I walked in super confident because I was like, all right, this is my bread and butter. I'm going to show everybody what I know. I know I can get a pretty good tight group. This is going to be a lot of fun for me, just kind of refresh. And I left that day just on cloud 9 because I realized how much more I had to learn, even on those basics and those foundations. So yes, I still walked in with some experience knowing that I could, hit paper consistently. I knew the mechanics of kind of what I was doing. But then the instructors really drilled down on, okay, let's try it a different way. If your trigger pull is, more on this part of your finger, let's switch it to another kind. And it really just opened up my eyes to there is so much more room for knowledge and skills building, even at a foundational level. You can still have fun. So we went to the range and had a great time, shooting paper, getting a little bit of challenge. But by the end, I was just I want more now because I knew we were just scratching the surface at that point. Right.
And then right into Defensive Pistol 2, you start moving a little bit and shooting. But what I remember is I believe it was Tactical Pistol. I'll never forget the realization of when the instructor told you, this pretty little group right here means you're not pushing yourself. You're not challenged. And I just remember the change in your face, the demeanor, and you said it back to me a couple times, and you're it's a novel concept. duh, that's how you grow in life, is get out of your comfort zone. So take me through that a little bit.
Yeah, so again, just being at the range with Dad, we're not putting any pressure on it. We're just, shooting really slow, trying to get as perfect as possible. And in my mind, I love that. I love, a tight group, and everybody does. Sure. And at the end of the day, that's what you're trying to get to as close as possible. But yeah, the realization that if your target looks like that and it's a perfect 1-inch circle in your target, then you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing. You're not challenging yourself. And it was that realization that I can have all these resources at my fingertips with these awesome instructors, these classes I'm getting to go to, but if I'm not willing to push it and find where that limit is, then I'm just going to stay where I am. And so then from there, I was like, okay, let's see how far we can push this then.
Yeah. And I think there's so many people out there that are obviously just trying to do it for money. Their classes are 2 hours long. I mean, what are you going to really learn in 2 hours?
Right.
I mean, you may be told something, but did you learn it? And then on top of that, they don't push their students or give them the opportunity to push themselves.
Right.
So let's talk about that a little bit. Is sadly, think of like that NRA instructor. That's how people probably think our instructors are.
Right.
They're not even close, are they?
No, not even close. Like, I think most instructors are very, let's just check this box, okay? We taught you grip, check this box. But the thing about the classes that I've done with MTAC and the instructors that I've gotten to work with is that no matter, like, what level you come in, what experience you have, they have so much knowledge that they can open that up and really test you and really, find the details for where you're at and push you. It's not one size fits all kind of training, and that's what was really amazing.
It's such a different thing for you to come in and have an instructor or even a professor, if it's school, that is at a level of instruction that they can cater to your level and any other level, and they can individually, whether it's a class or not, push you.
Right.
Like, your level of being pushed is different than the person next to you, but they can accommodate that.
Right.
So it definitely is something that, it makes me sad that, when we're talking to people about, hey, come to MTAC, we do firearms training, that somewhere in somebody's mind they're comparing us to that NRA instructor that is just checking the box and doing it to collect some money.
Right.
So it makes me sad. But
yeah. It's almost hard to explain unless you're there, because you can think that I'm starting off pretty good. I don't really know if I'm going to really learn this much. I'm just here to have fun. And it is a great time. And that's what makes it, nice to come in and do these classes too, is because it's a great time. You build a family and community by seeing these same people show up in classes, seeing the same instructors. But until you get in there and they start working with you on something you thought that you were doing pretty good, it's never good enough, because there's always something you can be improving on. So
right.
Yeah.
And I think that lends to result oriented versus performance oriented. With result oriented, that type group, done. I have one.
Yeah.
I've got a 1-inch group. That's awesome.
Right.
And then where do you go from there? Performance based, there's really never a ceiling on it. You can continue to do better.
Right.
And I think that, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just thinking on that concept too. Like, yes, you get immediate satisfaction from that nice, pretty, tight group, but the feelings of accomplishment that you get from doing like a trial by fire at the beginning of one of these classes to then progressing and seeing a journey within the class itself, that's really what got me hooked on it. Was, like, it feels nice to have a pretty target, but I felt an undescribable amount of satisfaction with myself from testing myself and challenging myself, and then coming out at the end of the day with, a fun beer shoot or something, and seeing how much I actually progressed during that time.
Right.
You're not going to find that many other places.
No, you don't. And I think that's really one of the unsaid things about our classes is we do put you on a journey. It's an individual journey and it's a class journey. Because there's a lot of, not to give away too much about the classes, there's a lot of that really takes the whole class. And there's a little fun competition inside there, and you get to watch your your new friends, your
Right.
shooting friends grow, as well
Yep.
as they get to watch you grow, and you get to experience the growth yourself.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's really
cool.
a neat thing. So, defensive pistol 1, defensive pistol 2, tactical pistol 1, tactical pistol 2, tactical rifle 1, tactical rifle 2, and even black patch in one of the classes. Which, to explain that to our viewers today, means you had probably the most growth. You showed the most change and learning and execution of the instruction of the whole entire class.
Mm-hmm.
So tell me about how you felt with that.
Yeah, so I had no idea that this black patch was even a thing. I was just trying to do my best, trying to focus on myself, but also just trying to be there for my peers in that class too. And I think that was one of the things that ended up being recognized, and I wasn't, didn't have any result in mind from it other than just having a great time with my peers in that class. So we were supporting each other. That class, I think it was a tactical pistol class, I believe. Mm-hmm. And we had just such a good time and gave each other a little bit of a hard time, but by the end, like we were talking about, let's go to range days after this. Let's see each other at the next class after. But yeah, just being recognized for something that, is just part of what the class and atmosphere was like already. You just have to take advantage of what's in front of you and just kind of enjoy the experience is what I did.
So I think you just touched on something that I think most people don't know about. And that is how inviting the people are in the class. I really think that a lot of people's apprehension about training in firearms is I don't want to be embarrassed. I don't want to screw up in front of other people. That general thing, like they're all going to be a bunch of strangers, but it's not like that, is it?
No, not at all. I mean, even you'll walk in a little bit nervous to the classroom aspect, but definitely once you get to the range, once you get into the shoot house, like everybody's going to mess up in one way or other, and it's okay because we're going to laugh about it. We're going to learn from each other, give each other tips, and it's just a fun time, really, to get out there and find people that have common interests with you and have that same kind of drive. Because if you're the type of person that, is going to show up to any firearms class, really, then you've got something in common with the rest of everybody else. Is they're there to be better for themselves and for the people around them. So it's a good kind of person.
A lot of times you were the only female in the class.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just, if anybody would to be apprehensive, I think going into that situation like that would be top of that apprehension.
Yeah, I kind of enjoy that though.
Because I'm gonna show these guys what's.
Yeah, because in my head they usually see me walk in. They're like, oh, what's this little girl doing here? But then we go up and give her hell.
That's
so.
Right. That's right. You did. So, you've taken a lot of flat range courses at this point. With us, how would you categorize what mentally? Looking back on what you thought training was and just punching holes in paper, can you expand a little bit on the difference in how you look at training? Like if you can make that a concise picture,
right.
is how you feel about training now versus how you felt a year ago about training.
Yeah, I think just to put it in simple terms, it would be the difference between like checking that box to just opening yourself up to the actual like whole journey. It's really just a rabbit hole that can keep going and keep going. And I ended up learning a lot about myself through it. So, what I thought training was before is, you can test yourself a little bit, you can have fun, check your box, say, hey, like, look everybody, I went to the range today. I did a class today. But really what firearms training, which I've learned about myself, is that you really have to look introspective and understand where you are and take ownership of that and then move on and then keep going to whatever's next, whatever you need to work on. And maybe that's, going home and working on some dry fire practice because you really sucked at something during class. Like I had that moment in between like defensive pistol 1 and 2. I just had something in mind. I think it was like my draw. I just kept getting caught up in my draw. And then that night, and that's just my personality, but I went home and was like, I'm going to dry fire practice this all night so tomorrow I can come back better. And that's the difference is normal firearms training, what you think of is, leave it at the range. Here, you're encouraged to look inside yourself. Are you challenging yourself? And if you are, then let's keep it going.
And a good analogy I heard years ago from another lady who used to come and train quite a bit was, say a year ago, if you were at a function with friends and somebody knew that you had a tight group of a target maybe hanging on your wall, you'd be like, hey, she's a badass. You got to see how well she shoots. And you'd be like, oh, I like to shoot. Now you'd be like, oh, look, no, I'm still working on this. I'm still working on that. That's one of the big differences is now your mentality about it is there's no T for trained. I got to keep training.
Yeah.
I'm going to lose this, and I still need to work on all this other stuff.
Yeah.
Where maybe a year ago you'd have been like, yeah, look at my group.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it just goes back again to that results versus performance orientation. Like maybe I look at that same target, I'm like, yeah, it's a pretty good group, but let me tell you what I had to do to get to that. Like we were moving, we were transitioning with targets. Here's what I had to make sure I was focusing on, and here's the difference between these. It just expands the more you look at it.
And I think, I want to make sure that people also understand that the amount of time you'd spent on a range prior to coming to our courses definitely lent to your comfort, and you were good. I mean, you really grew and learned, A, because you were there to do that, but B, because you had a solid range background. I think that really lent a lot into your performance and your comfort there.
Yeah, the flat range is my comfort zone. It still is, definitely. That's where I feel at home. I know what's going on around me. I understand, the concepts can add a little drill in there, add some time and speed constraints. But that flat range is where I'm comfortable because it's just me and the paper, and that's all that's that's all that's there, and that changes quick once you get a little farther into it.
Absolutely does. So then we take those classes, then you jump into precision rifle.
Yeah.
And I don't want to say too much, just for sakes of maintaining the identity of our instructor, but our instructor wasn't just any instructor. He teaches advanced sniper to the U.S. Green Berets.
Yeah.
So the wealth of knowledge there. And, when he first started with the presentations, I was like, holy moly. I mean, the terminology alone, but the math involved. And so tell us a little bit about precision rifle.
It was kind of like an anomaly kind of class because it's not really what we had been doing so far, right? But it was one of the most fun because it was kind of unknown to me. So I grew up, deer hunting, all of that. I know the mechanics of it, but what is actually going on? I mean, even we sat in the classroom and started talking about ballistics and trajectory and things like that. It's like, okay, I didn't know any of this really was happening or could explain it. I don't know if I could even explain it very well now because it was so much information. I always took notes in class, and I think from that I filled up, several pages of notes just from that classroom aspect. And then getting out to the range, getting to shoot steel at 300 yards plus. I mean, it was the best day ever. It was so great. It
was a lot of fun. I know that you guys put in a lot of work for that, and yeah, you learn the intricacies of what you're doing.
Yeah.
Definitely, if I'm a hunter, I want to get into that class because, if we're lucky in Indiana that shooting deer around here, you're not shooting real far out.
Right.
But if you ever want to take a trip out west, do some elk hunting, moose hunting, whatever, you're starting to reach out 600-700 yards, that class is a must.
Right.
I think that you're doing yourself a disservice. And I know there's a lot of people that go out and kill big animals without any of the training, and that's great, but it's really cool to know this stuff too.
Yeah, it's just like taking ownership over your hobbies is what that really was to me. I've done it all these years, but now I understand, and that is my my hobby now. That's mine, not anybody else's.
Yeah. Was there anything in precision rifle that you think would be applicable to other parts of firearms, like in training, like to rifle or to the pistol shooting or to tactics?
In a basic form, just understanding and taking ownership of knowing how your gear works kind of deal. So yes, we understand that it was a rifle and there's rifling inside, but, understanding, okay, I'm choosing this ammunition because I want this result. And just getting into those details, I think that translates well into anything else you're going to do. And then even the concept of like holdover, that's a term that I think we kind of use loosely, but then once
Kentucky windage,
yeah,
holdover,
yeah, and then you take it out to 300 plus yards and you understand what that actually means and the consequences behind doing it correctly or incorrectly translates into the same thing as, you know, tactical rifle or interior conflict. If you have your holdover wrong, serious consequences.
And that happens in this house all the time.
Yeah.
Because they forget they're 7 feet from their target now.
Yeah.
And the bullet doesn't go where they think it is. But you mentioned gear. So there wasn't a lesson during precision rifle, which turned out to be kind of a fun thing because you got to use a real sniper rifle after that.
It was, yeah.
But tell us a little bit about what you learned about, you know, maybe some scope rings and mounts and...
Yeah, so, I mean, that class was an example, but, I mean, we'll have to pull videos sometime because I know there's some bloopers out there because I learned all about my gear and the importance of actually having stuff that is going to support you and what your goals are. But, yeah, precision rifle, I mean, it's in the video. We talk about it a little bit, but my scope was not Loctite on, and so it wasn't really that secure. And after, you know, and this is kind of the same thing, and you don't, the same way you test yourself in these classes, you're testing your gear too. 100%. So you don't know really what that fail point is. I thought, you know, if I would have gone to a normal range day, Dad and I, we shoot 5-10 rounds maybe, it's good for the day, we don't see any issues. You take it out to precision rifle, and all of a sudden you're shooting, you know, 50 rounds plus maybe, and then, yeah, by the time you get out to 300 yards and that scope is loose, you understand the importance of making sure your gear is right and in check.
Yeah, we got to inventory and inspect things. I mean, and it's super important.
Yeah.
You got to have that stuff available for when you really need it. And then we see it all the time, even in law enforcement on the ranges, you know, guys' lights falling off. We've seen the front sight come off of a gun. We've seen now we're using red dots on pistols. We've seen those come off, break, things like that.
Yeah.
There's only one way the best way to learn about that is on the range in a controlled environment rather than on the street.
Absolutely.
Well, let's talk about the street a little bit. I mean, I understand some of the differences that you feel from training a year ago to now, but also how much more prepared for the street do you think you are? And not just with a firearm, but mentally.
Being put in this kind of environment and surrounding yourself with people that, you know, live this kind of lifestyle, really, you really take that on. So being surrounded by instructors that, you know, are part of the police force or military, you learn a lot just by understanding the way that they look at situations too, and then being put into scenario-based training. Now I'm, you know, a lot more conscious. I mean, I've always been the kind of person where, you know, if we're going to dinner, we're going to have to decide who gets, you know, the seat that you can see the door, and that makes me more comfortable. But now I understand why. I'm not just looking for the door. I'm also, you know, kind of scanning around to see what are other options or who's around me kind of deal. Just being more aware. Those situations make you more present, I think. And then going through like interior conflict, I mean, I just find myself, you know, if I'm walking through my hallway at home, you know, if I'm about to take a corner, I'm now, you know, trying to pie a little bit, and it's just part of that lifestyle and what you start thinking about more often, and it's just part of who I am now, is just be more aware, think of those kind of situations.
Yeah, and that's something that we want the students to gain from that, is a little bit of experience, but definitely the situational awareness.
Yeah.
Like, now I know what a NUDA loop is and what I should be looking for and how that actually works psychologically when something happens.
I mean, even the stress that you can be put under in the shoot house with scenario, even if it's just role players and you're just practicing different situations, what would you do under that stress? I mean, my heart gets pounding in here and I start sweating immediately because I'm stressed. But I am so much more confident in myself now that I would at least be able to do something rather than not understanding how I might react, because I never even put myself even close to that kind of stress or scenario. So I think that's invaluable, really, and why I now think the way that I do is because I know what I did wrong in the shoot house. I might as well do it wrong here and fail here than fail on the street.
Right, absolutely. We kind of skipped over Street Defender, and I think that was such an important class and piece to connecting the dots. It's easy for us on these videos and in class to say, hey, we validate our training in the house. You know, we come learn tactics here. This is a tactic house. But we also validate our flat range work. Yeah, you know, with the accuracy, the speed out of your draw. And so Street Defender and Interior Conflict, they're built to really test that flat range work.
Right.
And then you take what you did in here, make your notes, and then hit the flat range again and improve it. So how much of the Street Defender, hopefully you can remember, and just kind of take us through the Street Defender. I know you did. There's a good video of you talking about it out there, but Street Defender's a different animal because it's your real first time getting to point a gun at another human being.
Yeah.
So take me through that real quick.
Yeah, the first time having to point a gun at somebody, but first time having a gun pointed at me, that freaked me out. It really did. And you don't know how your body's going to react. You end up going to your habits. So what habits have you built on the flat range? You're going to revert back to that. And same as testing yourself, testing your gear, you're going to find out what works and what doesn't. But yeah, Street Defender, I just remember that was really the first time that I felt that kind of stress. And I was shaking, tunnel vision. I remember talking about what happened after with the instructor, and they're like, well, you did a great job of ducking down behind, the engine block for cover. I don't remember actually doing that. I remember being down there, but that was not an actual conscious thought of mine. So just understanding what you might do and revert to, you might as well do it here in the shoot house and make that mistake here, because then you can go back and fix it. But you're not going to know until you put yourself under that stress.
So few people get to actually experience what it's like to build neural pathways. And the layman term is muscle memory. And we've got a nice sign in the classroom that says you don't you don't rise to your expectations. You fall to your lowest form of training in a conflict. You got to experience that, and so do other students. They get to experience that first time of, oh, I do have neuro pathways. They're not good, and I've got to make them better, or I did things that actually surprised me, and I did well.
Right.
So kudos on me, but it could be better.
Right.
So when somebody's talking about neuro pathways in the classroom, it's easy for that to go right over the head. But you get out here and you start experiencing it, and it's like, oh, that's what that is.
Yeah, and you know something's coming because you know you're in the shoot house and you're expecting something to happen, so you're already heightened on your sensitivity. But yeah, I just really think that there's no way to do any other kind of training than what we're doing here to put you in that situation. Until you experience it, you just don't know. So you just have to at least give it a shot.
That's very important, too, for people to realize that force-on-force training is much more about the entire picture, because what you're trying to do you're building those hard skills on the flat range, right? And your soft skills are also, dealing with human beings, that human element, and all the little things that can go wrong. And you're, like, hey, I'm hiding behind something that can get shot through. That's probably not a good place to be. All those little things start coming into play, but that human interaction is different. We're starting to see a lot of video game firearms training now, where you're standing in front of a video. Now, does it have its place? Sure. Is it the real thing? As close to the real thing as we can get? No.
Right.
It isn't. There would be a lot of people who do a lot of papers to try to defute that, but at the end of the day, we already know that the human element is not in a video game. And so can you think of any of those scenarios that maybe the role player just did not react the way you thought they would?
I mean, the only thing that really comes to mind right away is in Street Defender. It was a scenario walking through a parking garage kind of deal, but then nothing happened. And that's just as valid. So, the scenario, somebody's over in the corner, I'm walking into this scenario, I'm heightened on my sensitivity, I'm like, something's about to happen. When nothing happens, that's still a decision that you're making of, are you taking in that information, what are you doing with it? And until you put yourself in this kind of scenario, you don't know if you're just going to overreact or underreact depending on what's going on. So you just have to keep pushing yourself and putting yourself under stress to understand how you're going to actually react to that.
Part of the scenarios are built partly on trying to get the student to stop gaming the situation, right? Because you're heightened.
Right.
Like, I'm going into a force-on-force situation. We're going to be shooting. So you're walking in with your hand on the gun. It's like, you don't walk around like that.
You don't do that.
You can't do that. So part of it's to try to get you to relax about that. Other part of it is these are some actual things that have happened in real life with real bullets. And people have acted when they shouldn't have and reacted when they should have. So it's a mixture of that. And I don't think people realize how much actually goes into the scenarios. 50% of the scenario is the role player.
Right.
They're the other student. And that's why it's fun to be a role player too.
Oh yeah. You learn a lot from that too.
Absolutely. Well, so those were really, Street Defender was your first real introduction to the shoot house outside the flat range.
Yeah.
But let's talk about the bad one, and that was interior conflict. So to set the stage, interior conflict is more like hey, we're going to start teaching you how to navigate structures and how dangerous and complex navigating structures really are. And we take everything for granted. We just walk through buildings all the time and don't think a thing of it until you get in that class. And then you realize angles are deadly. Rooms are deadly. Turning your back's deadly. Everything's deadly. So it's like, holy moly. And this is where I felt like your journey during the whole year was just not so much comfort level. I watched you push yourself, and I watched you become uncomfortable, and I saw you get stressed, but you were adapting. This was the first time I really felt like the wheels kind of started to fall off for you in a class. And I know you're going to get emotional about it, but I want you to talk about it. It wasn't easy for you. So take us through. I know you did a wrap up, but I want to talk about the emotional side, like not so much just what the class was teaching, and I know it was hard for you, but why?
Yeah, I mean, we found my limit in that, and we took away the comfort level of the flat range. So yeah, I didn't have as much experience with a rifle maybe as I did a pistol. So it took away a little comfort there, took away a lot of comfort getting off of the flat range, because that was a great time, like tactical rifle. We're just having a great time, going through some drills and kind of working on those hard skills just a little bit to get ready for the shoot house. But the stress of really taking in information and computing that into what I just did at the flat range just didn't connect for me. It was a lot for me to understand, and that was where my limit was for sure, was, not only learning how to navigate structure, which is a lot anyway, but that stress, I mean, I just got tunnel vision. I was just practically, sometimes it felt like to me, just moving through it. And then that's when I would make mistakes, is because I was not really outrunning my hard skills, but I was outrunning my ability to process information, which I just was not expecting that to be the lesson that I had to learn that day.
Yeah, and I think you're right on with you don't have to necessarily outrun your hard skills, which most people do. I mean, that's really, at the end of the day, we're like, slow down.
Right.
Your feet aren't going to move as fast as a bullet. You hear that a lot. But processing speed, huge.
Yeah.
It's massive. I mean, that is the one hiccup in structural navigation that so many people have, is life moves quicker than your processing speed, especially when you're first starting learning. Mm-hmm. It's a matter of trying to manage that.
Right.
And they can get away from you quick.
Yeah.
And when we put somebody with you, crap, now I got this person to deal with too. Mm-hmm. So, but you push through. As painful as it was.
Yeah. I mean, I'll be honest, there were real tears after that class. And, you know, we can talk all day about, like, you know, you can't get in your head. You got to just, you know, keep a good outlook, keep challenging yourself. It all makes you better. But, I mean, that was a tough one just to be inside my own head on. I started off stressed, and then, you know, it's just a me thing that now I know I have to work on is, you know, being able to keep pushing through it. Yes, I did push through it, but, you know, that battle inside your head, that never stops. So until you can control yourself, I mean, you can get in deep into that as you want. I didn't think that the shoot house would, you know, make me want to go to a therapist or anything. But, man, I learned a lot about myself, you know, was I way more confident by myself than I was working with a partner or a team? Absolutely. And that's something that I think we need to talk about more, and I've enjoyed talking about just because that's something I didn't know about myself until I put myself in this situation. And I'm a lot better at looking out for myself than being put in with a partner at this point, and that's just something that I have to take ownership of and work through so that I can trust my team around me, and then we can be actually, you know, successful through it. So
I'm so glad that you had that opportunity to actually have some part of that weekend be a little gleaming light for you. Mm-hmm. You know, and I remember your excitement about when you ran through a solo and you were like, I killed it. That was awesome. You know, I had a lot of good feedback from the instructors. I felt confident going through there. And then as soon as they put you with somebody, you were right back.
It's like, where did that go? Yeah. So
everybody has that. And I know everybody watching this right now that's been in here is 100% understanding what you're saying right now, because then I don't care what level, whether they're the interior conflicts tier 1 student or a Green Beret. Mm-hmm. They've all been there mentally. Yeah. The house is a humbler. It'll find your weaknesses. Right. Just like the UTMs will find your skin. Yeah. Any exposed skin, the house will find any exposed emotions and trample all over it, because you're right. If one person's struggle may be, you know, the processing speed, the next person's might be the hard skills aren't there. Right. And, you know, that's why we try to stress so much. Get those hard skills on point. Mm-hmm. Because when you come here into the house, it's already going to be a lot. Yeah. Trying to remember how to, you know, change your magazines is not the time to do it.
That's true. Yeah.
It's not the time. But people still do it, don't they? They come in here and they don't have those hard skills set. And then, could you imagine even being at that? I mean, you got that stress where those simple things, what used to be simple, weren't so simple anymore. Right. And people come in here with not any of that.
Yeah.
skill.
I mean, there's video of that too, me struggling, you know, and this is a gear thing too, you know, but being a lefty, you know, trying to figure out these mag changes on a right-handed rifle, figuring that out, and then I got my gear right too. So I get myself right, my gear right, my hard skills right, and then we can test those limits. But you have to have that solid foundation for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, you know, the good news is interior conflict coming up in February. Yeah. Jump right back in there and get after it again. Oh yeah, which is great. And I know you're charged up to do it. And then we'll roll right into interior conflict too, and you can move on. But you know, it was one of those unexpected things, but 100% you're better from it.
Oh, yeah.
The things you learned in that class, I wish everybody could learn that much about themselves.
Yeah, and I guarantee I'll learn just as much the second time around, even though it's the same class. I'll try to be as mentally prepared for it as possible, but I know, you know, we're still going to be working through different challenges, and that's why you can never really stop taking these kinds of classes. You're never too good for them because you're going to keep learning something about yourself even.
You know, and that's the one thing about interior conflict classes. So many of the now 170 students that have taken it come back and take it again and again. And we've had people take it 5-6 times. And I've got them calling now like, hey, I know you don't need opposition, but can I still come? Right. And, of course you can. Right. Let's get some reps.
Yeah.
And those reps are what is so important.
Right.
There. And so, but we got a fun, exciting 2024, more interior conflict. We've got home defender class that you're going to be getting into. So now we're going to start learning how to defend the castle.
Yeah.
And the intricacies in doing that, which are really more than what anybody really thinks of until they get in that class and they're like, oh my gosh, this is like, we always try to make things way more complicated. No, we're just trying to point out all of the things that you need to think about.
Right.
Street Defender 2 this year. That's going to be fun. Now, we have to make the big pivot, right? UTM's out. We're going to be doing something, different with that, but it'll still be the same kind of training. We can still have to be able to shoot something at each other.
Oh, yeah.
That's part of what we do here. And then also, starting next week, we're going to get you in that range safety officer, armorer, and then working up, I say, by the end of this year, some instructor stuff. So that's going to be fun.
Yeah, we're here for it.
If anybody wants to catch up on your journey thus far, go to our YouTube channel. Head over there, check out all her videos. You can watch pretty much everything. And we do need to do a blooper reel. I think that'd be
I'm
hilarious.
sure we can find that somewhere.
I bet there's probably enough stuff. That's probably a lot of hours of research.
I don't mind being the laughing part of that. But
I mean, the one that I sent
we've all been there. So.
Oh my gosh, just banging on the rifle like, you're going to have to cut this part out. I mean, that makes me laugh so hard, and I think people will enjoy that.
It's not all pretty.
No, that's why they're bloopers.
Yeah.
But so an exciting year. We'll probably see you in at least an assistant position. And we're moving all of this into one direction. I know that it's your desire to bring more women into the firearms training community. So talk about that a little bit.
I mean, that's really what will make me emotional on this because, I mean, I don't know, probably 90% of the classes that I walk into are men, and it's just a male-dominated industry. But I know I'm not the only female out there that thinks this stuff is cool or that thinks they're up for the challenge and just ready to own up to where they are and see where they can go. So I am super excited to really put a big focus on getting more women into their training journey. You learn more about yourself than you ever could and feel so empowered, and that's what I want other women to feel too, is, we can jump into this male-dominated industry and really just, kick butt. Like, girls are awesome. Yeah. So I would love to, get to interior conflict again and have like a girl squad. That would be my dream.
That'd be slick.
And we'll tear it up. So
heck yeah, by the time you guys go to IC3 and all girl team would be pretty cool.
Yeah, so more females in here, better watch out because we'll take it on.
Absolutely. And they tend to be better students.
Oh yeah, way better.
Every instructor has always said that because they're here to learn.
Yeah.
Not tell you what they think they know.
Yeah.
So it's going to be a fantastic year. A lot more training to come. We're going to start putting you in other positions within the company to start learning in that direction too.
Yeah.
Probably going to be pretty challenging to be behind the line.
Yeah.
So we'll see how that goes.
Yeah.
It's
going to be great.
Yeah, it is. So let us know if you like this podcast and hit the thumbs up or the thumbs down button. Either way, we always appreciate that. And go check out our other videos. And we'll see you next time on The Proving Ground.